All right, everybody. We are going to stick with this pairing. The pairings were made prior to the previous round. But if you think about it, John Shreve does still control his own destiny. He has to win his game. And if Nigel wins as well, it sets up a many game in a row kind of series where John has to continue to beat Nigel as many times as possible until either Nigel clinches or John makes an epic comeback. Also, if Orry wins this game against Nigel, it makes John's life a lot easier too. He would only have to win. Well, he still probably has to win all four, in fact. So it doesn't actually change that much. John has to win his game, and that's going to earn him the right to continue to face off many, many times in a row against Nigel. Orry Swift standing in Nigel's way as he gets ever closer to clinching victory at the World Cup, Rafi.
And in a way, this could actually be a little bit easier for John because John, whoever he is playing, will have a higher chance of winning. And Orry is just as good an opponent to play Nigel as John would be. So this actually could be a nice little break for John to try to win a game against someone a little bit easier and to hope that Orry can take care of business here.
Yep. So players have been waiting patiently for that confirmation. We are ready to go anytime, I believe. Orry, a player we've seen a number of times. I think we actually saw him play. I think we saw him play Nigel on day 3 to start things off in that session. So no stranger. And that game, definitely, Nigel drew very well, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully for Orry's sake, the tiles smile on him a bit more. And yeah, we should be ready to go as soon as the players are ready. So might be getting, Joey and Shreve are holding until the pairings are confirmed. Okay, I think we've now, yeah, we're about to start. All right, so pairings issues have been resolved. This is somewhat of an unprecedented situation to be this close to clinching so early, Rafi, which is probably why some of the, look at that first tile. We've seen that a number of times. First tile out of the bag, the blank for Nigel. What else is he going to get with it here?
Looks like he has not the best stuff with it, which is very good for Orry to still have a chance. Nigel having a blank bingo to open the game would be very, very hard to come back from. And yeah, so a lot of blanks on Nigel's racks in this tournament. He would still probably be winning the tournament without them, but the reason he's ahead by so many games is because he has just been drawing blank after blank after blank.
Yeah. Blank's always going to help, especially when you have the vision and creativity to make maximal use of them every time, as Nigel does. But yeah, I think there's no question that even as amazing of a player as Nigel is, to have a record this good in a field this strong, you have to also draw some good stuff. And I would say overall, that is what we've seen from him. But that's the tiles that he's drawn have allowed him to get out to an insane record. Most people with the same tiles would probably, if you're an expert or a grandmaster level player, you would probably still be towards the top or at the top of the standings, but not with quite as commanding of a result as he has had.
And Orry here is set to play Evite as a nice overlap. If the V was up slightly higher, Nigel would have a very obscure bingo through that V, but there's just not quite enough space to do that here.
Yeah, that would be unbelievable to see a bingo there, but advocat, that would be so impressive. I don't think Nigel actually has a bingo yet. He's getting set to play Data. Maybe just off of the EX right here. That seems reasonable, leaving CA blank. It certainly opens the board a little, but not crazily so. And Orry with some good tiles too. So even if Nigel lands an early bingo, I feel like Orry is not going to be blown away from the get go, holding the Z and an S in reserve, Rafi, which is a good thing for us all.
If Nigel plays data here, then Orry will probably be paralleling it with Zek for like upwards of 50 points. So even with Nigel drawing that first blank, Orry is actually going to have a decent lead here.
Yeah, Zek, that's going to come down really fast. I don't think there's much need for Orry to look around too much. He probably knows the odds of him having a bingo with the Z and the K together are quite minimal. There you see it lined up. He very likely knows that against Nigel, you need to take your obvious plays as quickly as possible with the expectation that Nigel, even though he never looks rushed when he's playing, he goes at such a good clip that you need every second that you can get. So nicely done by Orry. He's barely used a minute and a half on his clock for the first couple moves of the game, and he has a 40-point lead here and an S in reserve. So things looking good. Tough draw for Nigel with all those vowels, though.
Yeah, that's probably about a bottom 5% draw for him. If you take any of those vowels and turn them into a consonant, then he's almost certain to have a bingo. And now he's kind of forced to just play off two vowels for only a small score. Looking to right now to play OE and Oka looks like what he's going to do. And yeah, just having to blank on your opening rack and not bingoing for 3 turns is pretty rough.
Yeah, OE. That doesn't feel like an inspiring play, but it actually scores a solid 18 points, which is more than you would usually expect by dumping just two vowels. And if I'm Orry seeing Nigel play OE for 18, I feel a little concerned that I know exactly what's coming. I feel like what it would inspire me to do, Rafi, is to play through this E at all costs. I do not want to allow Nigel to hit a double double through there. Exactly what Orry is doing. Block it off now while he has a decent play that does so. I definitely think that's a great choice by him.
And Orry is known to be a very, very strong defensive player. He recognizes that by playing Liu, he's blocking off the S hook from it to make its. He's blocking off the E to play an 8-letter word through, and the E is by far the best tile to do that with. And he really restricts the chances of bingoing on this board. Now, really, the only spot is through that L in exactly the 5th position, or hooking an S under OE to make OES,
Or
or through the IT to play dacoities, which Nigel spots nearly instantly. Amazing.
yeah. What can you say? That's the only available, I should say, bingo. Dacoities through IT. No sevens, no eights available. That was it. 9 letters. And of course, he spotted it very quickly. He gave it a good look, scanning the board for any possibility of something better. But this is definitely the play. Very impressive. What can you say? It's just like clockwork, no matter how difficult the bingo may be. Admittedly, I do think that Nigel is not the only player at this level who would see that particular 9-letter word, as it is a plural of a 7-letter word, an obscure one to be sure. But I do think, for example, Orry probably knows dacoity and might be able to find dacoities a high percentage of the time. But again, it's the speed and the consistency, in addition to the outlandish nature of some of these words, that we are all reacting to when we watch him.
Yeah, and I think that playing dacoities right there would be a little bit easier for a lot of players to find if you don't have quite as many vowels, if you maybe have the S instead. It doesn't look very natural to play through the IT when you have 5 vowels combined in that word. And I think the natural thing for most players to do would be to try to find an 8 through that L first, and then only after not finding one to look through the IT. So yeah, not a play that every top player will find. Definitely one that a lot of top players can find, and Nigel finds it in 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. Tough question for Ori now with his F. He's thinking about playing the F here. I would certainly be tempted to try to cover this spot too, which could be so damaging if a really high scoring consonant landed in this square. I do feel like this spot is also kind of dangerous. So leaving that open might not be that much better, but it's a tough call. It seems like Ori has been considering playing things with the F here, like FIL, but I don't think he's really considered a play like flan right here yet, which seems to have some merit as well, just to cover up that spot. He's going to go with FIL, Phil, setting up his A with Thela. Of course, the E also hooking, among other things. I think this is probably as good as anything else, but a lot of different ways he could have gone there, Rafi.
I think probably one of the main reasons he didn't choose to play on the triple to the left is that the X is already out. So the biggest tile that can go under that A has already been played. So it isn't quite as big of a threat as normal. Um, and yeah, I mean he would have to play a fourth tile off if he wanted to play there, and his ANRS leave had a lot of synergy. He would have to also play off his A instead of his I, and the A is a much better tile for bingoing than the I. So I think he's looking to give himself the best chance of bingoing, and that is why he chose Phil over Flan.
Makes a lot of sense. Nigel had lined up Farm, which would have gotten rid of both his F and M, playing on top of Dacoites, but with that spot blocked by Ori, he plays Tram, which was by far his highest scoring play. And this creates a situation where Ori, with his very solid leave, he draws an E, which is good news, giving him flexibility with File, but drawing the Q along with the Y is a tough one. I guess it just feels very natural, Rafi, to me to just dump that Q, and you should be able to bingo a fair amount of the time after just dropping the Q for 22 here.
I agree, Will. The Q dump there is very clearly the best option here. There's only one other spot to play the Q above the I and Liu. Or he could actually play Trank down from the T, but playing off your R, A, and N, which are amazing bingo tiles with your S, isn't very appetizing. So playing QIS, which Ori did pretty quickly, is definitely the best.
Yeah, seems pretty solid. We will just have to see what Ori draws. It's going to be a big question here. If he connects, it's such a different game. He draws an O. Doesn't seem like the best draw for him. I don't think that means that Ori's.
Yo.
Ooh, not sure if having any audio issue again. We'll be on guard for it. Nigel playing Frown for 22. He doesn't. This is such a weird looking play because it doesn't really hit any bonus squares, but it at least addresses the FIL hooking area and dumps a lot of Nigel's consonants in one go. What do you think of that one, Rafi, if your audio is cooperating?
I think Frown seems like a reasonable play. It's kind of goofy to make a play that doesn't really hit any good bonus squares, but when you have a bunch of consonants and there's a big spot open to play a bingo, and this is your best way to block it, then by all means, Frown is probably the right thing to do. And Ori, despite not having a bingo, actually has a pretty good option available, multiple good options using his Y and his O. He will probably be able to bingo next turn finally. And when you're close to a bingo and you have to fish off using only one or two tiles, this is one of the best options you can have to do that.
Yeah, look at these two nice hooks. It's very interesting to think if you play with Dexy, you are creating a good scoring spot. But as you said before, the X is already on the board. So the downside risk of that spot is not horrible, especially given that there are other decent places on the board to play. Or you could really go for it and play something like Yo. I don't think this is advisable here. There's too many hooks that you can get hit with after a play like this. You could also just play Oi, setting yourself up a line that's a little safer. Or he's going to go ahead and play Yo. These plays are really close in my estimation, Rafi. I guess the thing about playing Oi and Frowny is that you actually do not have very many hooks. Really, only the S can go across there. So it's kind of a deceptively not that great bingo line. So maybe Orry's play is a solid one for him here.
Yeah, I like his choice. Yo also sets up an N hook too. So he has one of the tiles that can go after Yo. He also keeps open the ability to start a bingo with a vowel by hooking on the N in frown. And with that T in the very, very left side of the board, unobstructed, he has a really good chance of drawing a bingo. And indeed, he will be able to bingo next turn.
Yeah, seems like between well, I guess if Nigel were to play in this area, what would that leave left for Orry? It might block everything unless I'm missing something. But Nigel is about to play drum and yod here. That's going to leave everything open for Orry to bingo next turn, which is a nice break for him. Nigel leaving the J left over. I wonder if he's got some plan for it, which you always have to worry about looking for when he keeps one of those high point tiles. He's got some kind of plan a lot of the time. And Orry looks like he is getting ready. Wonder what he's thinking about because there we go. That is his highest scoring bingo by a fair margin, Rafi. I was worried he was going to try something else. Sarcenet 77. This definitely feels called for.
For sure. Highest scoring bingo, definitely put it down. There's no defensive drawbacks to it. So, um, good choice by Ori to play it pretty quickly. And going back to Nigel's last play of drum, I think that his plan for the J was maybe hoping to hit something starting from the top right double letter score to go down to make a four-letter word, making EF. Um, a play there like Jane, for example, would score almost 50 points. And I think that's what he was going for when he played drum.
That makes a lot of sense. Sure. You can definitely draw stuff right here a lot of the time. Plenty of things can fit in there with the right draw with your J, and that spot does feel somewhat unlikely to be blocked. And look at this. Wow. Huge opportunity for Orry. There is no way he is not going to see Sanguine at the top of the board, Rafi. This could be huge for Orry in this game. And by extension, for everybody else in the tournament, I guess that's just John Shreve at this point, who needs Nigel to drop this game to retain some winning chances.
Yeah, finally, someone drawing very well against Nigel late in this tournament. Ori is probably very, very excited here to have a guaranteed bingo next turn. Even if it's blocked, he still has Angween in another spot. So Ori doesn't really have much to think about here. Just has to wait and see what Nigel does, and make sure his tracking is good, or the other factors in the game that you have to think about when you're not thinking about what word to play.
Look at this though. So Nigel This definitely, even though it is great news that Orry is going to be able to bingo here, he is now down to one and only one spot. And this spot is way scarier to bingo with than Sanguine would have been. Not only does it not score quite as well, you can see it makes this gigantic spot that Nigel could potentially use. So even though Ori is 100% correct to play this word as fast as he can, I would definitely have preferred in his shoes to play Sanguine rather than currently. He's going to be a little bit on edge, waiting to see what Nigel does in response to that. It could be terrible if Nigel has a huge bingo in that spot. It could cede his advantage completely back. But Nigel is very likely to just play Job for 51, which is a great score. But I wonder, can Ori draw the second blank? Can he draw something good? And it looks like the answer is not yet. Game is still going to be really close, Rafi.
Agreed, Will. This draw for Ori was definitely not very good. When you draw the W and U combo, you almost never have a bingo, and it's very hard to get rid of them at the same time. It's they're two of the worst tiles in the game, and they do not make words together very often. So Ori has a lot to think about here, trying to decide if he wants to play um, something like pumped through the M, if he wants to play pup parallel to sanguine.
Yeah.
L.
Pumped
Um,
here seems reasonable. It does leave the W, but at least there are no more U's to come in the bag to really hurt the W. There is a V, which isn't ideal, but the U is really the whammy tile that you're looking to avoid when you have a W. Um, I guess from Ori's perspective, as you say, Pup right here scores pretty well, but I would certainly be a little leery of that with the two S's unseen. I guess you could potentially also play Pupa there, although that's not that relevant. I kind of like Pumped just because it doesn't hook with anything. It turns a few more tiles to try to get that all valuable, all important and valuable blank or one of the two S's. Um, that's where my instinct is here, but we'll see what Ori elects to do. What do you think of Pumped, Rafi? It kind of my instinct is it's a decent play here.
I agree. Pumped not taking a hook is very, very important. It makes it very, very difficult now to access the bottom. And with the OE hook being really the only good bingo lane on the board, aside from the RE lurking in the top left, which Nigel could play a 9 off of, the board will be very, very, very difficult to bingo on.
Yeah, for sure, which definitely favors the player with the lead, even if that lead. So Ori already up by a decent margin, 36 plus whatever he gets for his next play. And he's managed his time very well in this game, I would say. Normally, we've seen much bigger disparities on the clock than this. Yeah, Ori is down on time to Nigel, but by a somewhat negligible amount. So he's going to be able to think through these positions pretty deeply heading into the pre-endgame and endgame. So I do like his position here quite a bit, especially after Pumped going up by basically a low scoring bingo. So he's in good shape here. But Nigel, being Nigel, is definitely going to do whatever it takes to come up with a possible winning pathway here. You can definitely bet on that.
And look at both players right now. Ori has his hands on his head. He is concentrating very, very hard. And Nigel looks a little bit less relaxed than he normally does. He has his hand on his face in this resting pose where normally he looks way more relaxed than this. So both players are thinking very, very hard right now in a very critical game.
Yeah, without question. Ori thinking hard. I just wonder what, from his perspective, worries him the most. He's trying to come up with what is the scariest pathway back for Nigel. I feel pretty good if I'm Ori about intermediate scoring plays, pretty much all the highest scoring tiles, the power tiles, as we say, K, I guess, among them, but really the Q, X, J, and Z have all been played. So nothing huge to worry about there. It really feels like it's all about stopping a bingo. That would be the top priority. And it's very difficult to do anything about an S hook here. So if I'm Ori, I'm wanting to obstruct this E if at all possible. And that's where my thought process leads me to, again, the play of pumped, which we're talking about. Looks like he's going in a different direction. Is he really going to play pup? That seems like some players would play pup, but I would be kind of surprised if Ori played that, Rafi.
I don't think that he'll play pup. And if he does play pup, he might play pup on the left side, putting a P in the triple triple lane, but simultaneously taking out an S hook. Note that Anguin does not take an S. Oh, interesting. He plays pump without the ED. That is a very reasonable play and a lot better than pup and other options.
Yeah, agreed. So this does not give enough room to play a 7-letter word with a terminal S. No hooks to data in this lexicon. So you don't have to worry about that. You've blocked the N, which has some value with 2 G's and 2 I's left. Bingos to the E. Yeah, you might want to block them, but think about it. They don't even score that much, and they give you a counter right back, as Nigel instantly playing caves here, using his only vowel to do so. I wonder if he was ever at any point thinking about Vax at the top of the board as well. That could have been a good option, scoring somewhat at literally the same, in fact. So caves for 37 versus Vax for 37 at the top of the board, putting a V out in space, which could be kind of annoying to deal with, Rafi. Interesting choice. My gut says I kind of prefer Vax, but far be it from me to question Nigel here.
One potential reason he may have played caves is that any decent scoring play through the C opens up a lane to play a bingo, an 8-letter bingo from whatever tile you put in the corner. So while it doesn't open up a bingo lane immediately, it's likely to open up a little bit easier to start with than a V, because Vs are not very good for starting bingos.
That is true. And that's a good point. So this could be a multi-turn sort of idea by Nigel, that if the C stays open and he can get a play down through it, you've now created a lane that's very, very annoying in a lot of cases for Ori to block while also scoring a lot of points. I suppose theoretically, though, if you had a good play through this A overlapping whatever Nigel played, that could be just what Ori wants. But look at that draw. Ori, the second blank, finding its way onto his rack in the nick of time. And Nigel does not have a great ability to play through that C at all. I wonder what he's going to try to do to wring victory out of this game here, which looks very grim for him right now. Definitely loving Ori's chances.
Yeah, Orry looks to be in the driver's seat right now for sure, especially with the blank on his rack. Of course, Nigel doesn't know that. So Nigel may be looking to make some sort of play that plays off more tiles than other plays. Normally here it's like you might want to make a play like tab or bat, leaving a 5-tile combination that bingos frequently. But with so few tiles left in the bag, a play like binate to play off 5 tiles, score more points, and have extra draws at the blank might be warranted here.
If binate is the play, that would be instant game over, as Ori would quickly spot Leggiero through this E, and that would be that. Doesn't make the play wrong. It just means in this particular instance, Nigel would be walking into that buzzsaw. It makes sense maybe that if you do play binate, here. Maybe Nigel can induce kind of a weak block of this area, and then maybe he can draw a bingo at the top of the board, especially through RE. This seems like a decent place to play a 9-letter word, but Nigel plays bait instead of binate, and he's still
Wow.
going to get hit for the gargantuan triple triple. Down it comes. Blank is going to be, I'm looking at the designation right now, the O, nicely spotted. And that's going to do it. I don't see a way after such a huge score for Orry Swift that Nigel's going to be able to win this one in the end game, even with a bingo. That score for Leggiero, 149 points across 2 triple word scores. And that's going to do it. And for those of you wondering, can Nigel bingo out with hentais? Not in this lexicon. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to see Nigel play hentais here. That would be a viral Scrabble moment if ever there was one.
This bingo of Leggiero has more implications than just Orry winning the game against Nigel, because if John Shreve is to lose his current game, he will need to win 4 games in a row and also catch Nigel on spread. And he's currently down by about 1,000 in spread, which would mean that he would have to win 4 in a row by around 500. Now, with this additional close to 200 points that Nigel's going to lose in spread, that cuts John's deficit down by a considerable amount. He'll only have to win those 4 games by a total of 400, which is a much, much, much easier task.
Yeah, great point. A lot is going to hinge on that result between John Shreve playing Joey Krafchick here. It's been pointed out in the chat by several people, Rafi, that Orry just drew Uri out of the bag. Uri Swift. I'm sure he knows better than anyone that that's nothing close to that is a valid spelling for him. But yeah, great job by Orry. I feel like he made several very, very nice plays here. And Nigel just playing het on top of Leggiero as expected. That is the optimal play. I think he's preparing to play sane at the top of the board, if I'm not mistaken. That seems like a really, really good place to play those letters for a good amount of points. And then he has backup plays everywhere. If that play gets blocked, oh, I guess Ains is even better. Can play Ains all the way down. So nicely done by Nigel again. It's hard to emphasize how crazy it is, the accuracy and speed with which he plays these end games. It really is a very different set of skills than generating the plays in the beginning and mid game of a Scrabble game. So it's just so crazy to me that he's also the best at that part of the game.
It almost makes me wonder if he has some sort of synesthesia where when he sees a play on the board, it doesn't show up as a word, it shows up as a color. And the correct endgame play always shows up as green, and all the other plays show up as red. And so then he just knows I have to play this play because he can see it in a different light than everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something like that, which is difficult for us to wrap our brains around because it just it's very difficult to envision the actual process going on to figure out that stuff so quickly. It's a treat to watch. It really is. And it's in multiple languages as well. And yeah, just awesome to see it in real time, which hopefully a lot of you out there are agreeing. I know for many of you out there on YouTube, the last few days might be the first time that you've ever gotten to see Nigel compete live. It's a really fun experience. He's definitely thrown a bunch of curveballs and made a bunch of plays that have been incredible to see. And he won a couple of games that I don't think that many other players would have been able to convert. So if you have been watching over the last few days, really appreciate everybody for stopping by. We've got some numbers, and, just personally, it's been a goal of mine to have over 1,000 people watching a Scrabble live stream at one time. We've had it a couple times in the history of the game, but certainly never on a stream that I have had anything to do with or produced. So, really appreciate all of you out there watching along, chatting, having good vibes, and hanging out with me and Rafi this afternoon.
Orry puts down Yo, which is the best endgame play. And again, Will, just what you were saying about getting all the views. Big congrats on working your channel up from the ground and getting a ton of popularity and getting so many people who didn't know anything about Scrabble into the game in various degrees, either as a new player or as a fan or whatnot. So really nice work on your part to grow the game.
Yeah, I appreciate that, though it has been very much a team effort by all different people within the scene. And a big win for Ori here. We will definitely try to figure out as soon as we know what was the result from the John Shreve versus Joey Kravchik matchup. That determines a lot. It has to do with what is John's objective going into these last few games against Nigel. Does he need to win each and every game? And does he need to, as Rafi was breaking down, does he need to win by a ton of points to overtake Nigel's tiebreaker? Or does he simply need to win his games by any amount? Definitely will change a lot of his decision making. Either way, it is John Shreve who has put himself in position as I rudely am saying this because Nigel is very much a human being, a lovely person to talk to. He's not inhuman in any sense, but I was about to say humanity's last hope against Nigel. That's rude to say, but you all understand what I mean. It's up to John if anyone's going to stop Nigel here. But if Nigel wins, it's going to be tremendously well deserved. He's given us an amazing show. And again, Rafi, the crazy thing that really we can't forget about is not even the only slip up that he even came close to making in terms of word knowledge and keeping all the dictionaries straight is a Spanish word. He almost played a Spanish word on day 1 or 2. Other than that, literally no lexicon confusion whatsoever, trying to keep straight the North American lexicon, the international English lexicon, and now both French and Spanish are in that noggin as well. That to me is just, I don't know if we've talked about it. Everybody likely knows about it with him, but just it does bear repeating how crazy that is.
It is very, very amazing. It's kind of like a professional basketball player deciding to play baseball and actually being a top baseball player, and then deciding to play football and being a top football player, and then deciding to become a swimmer. It's unbelievable to be able to do what he's doing, even in one lexicon, and to be able to do it in four, and to understand the ins and outs of how the letters work together is just unbelievable.
Yeah, truly. In the long list of things that we can marvel about, that's definitely high on it for me. So, this game is complete. Very nicely done by Ori to stare into the serene visage of Nigel and come up with a great win in which really Ori played an excellent game. I'm looking over the move list from the game and I'm thinking to myself, each and every move, he just nailed it. So fantastic performance by Ori Swift, who again, a fantastic player in his own right too, was a finalist at the Scrabble Players Championship a couple years ago. And nobody at all would be surprised to see Ori win a major championship in North America at some point. He really is a fantastic player. In addition to a great Magic the Gathering player, Ori is, I should say. And it's cool within our midst. I'm certainly not one of these people, but we have some two sport stars in our midst. And you yourself are one of those, Rafi. We were going to maybe get a chance to talk about this with Annette Oberstad being considered to be on the stream as a legend of the game of poker. But for those that don't know, and I don't know why they would because we haven't talked about it yet, Rafi Stern just came in the top 125 ish in the main event of the World Series of Poker, which is crazy that you are like a Scrabble grandmaster level player and doing not really side quests. Maybe Scrabble is your side quest at this point.
Yeah, it was an incredible run. I can't believe that I did that. It was my first time playing the main event, and it just so much went right. And to play that for 5.5 days and have a chance to come close to winning the whole thing was really a treat. And playing Scrabble actually helped me a ton for that tournament. When you play in a Scrabble tournament, you have to be on every single turn. You don't have a chance to take a turn off. In poker, you can fold. You fold most of your hands. And when you fold, you don't have to do anything for around 2 minutes. And sometimes you're folding for an hour and you play almost no hands in an entire hour. In Scrabble, you don't have that opportunity. So, in a lot of ways, playing in the main event of the World Series of Poker was easier than playing in a Scrabble tournament like this in terms of how much brain power is required. So, what players are doing here, playing 31 games of Scrabble, is really, really no small feat. And anyone who's a top level Scrabble player, I imagine, with some work, could learn to become a top poker player as well.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but it seems like a very tall order. I find it difficult to imagine myself having the same level of success that you have had. So it's super impressive. It was awesome to see. Like we said, Ori also an accomplished Magic the Gathering player on the Pro Tour in that game. So yeah, um, pretty pretty cool to see that. Nigel, his side quests are all in the world of Scrabble. He has not strayed that far. He's conquering languages one by one. But yeah, with this game in the books, I think what we're going to do now